We're starting today's video on the Mokka in the Astra because I've just dropped the kids off at school and it is MOT day for the Mokka, and Hannah has gone to drop the Mokka off at the garage and we are now going to pick Hannah up. This is the third of 3 MOTs for the cars this season. We had the pass on the Astra, which is a short on, and we had the pass on the BMW E90, which was on the last video midway through wrapping the car. Last year we had 3 out of 3 fails, so we're looking for 3 out of 3 passes now, which would be awesome. Let's go and find Hannah in the Mokka. We found Hannah.
Oh, hello.
There Hannah goes to find out if it's passed or failed. There it is. The beast. Off she goes. Everybody wants to know, did it pass?
It did, yes.
Excellent. What did the MOT tester say about it?
Squeaky clean.
Wow.
Squeaky clean.
You must have a really good mechanic.
Yeah, something like that.
And speaking of, the car needs a service now, doesn't it?
Does indeed.
Let's do it.
Next noise.
That is amazing news Hannah has just delivered us. That means that following the last video where the E90 passed its MOT, and then I posted the short about the Astra passing its MOT, that all 3 cars of mine have passed their MOT first time round this year. Bit of a change from 3 cars I had this time last year, all failing. Good stuff. Right. Into the garage over there, and let's see what service goodies we've got. When Hannah says another noise,
Next noise.
she is referring to the various issues that she's had when she had the E90 there, which we're taking a break from wrapping. Check out the top right corner for the last video on that. And then with the Mokka, we've had the issues with the overheating and the EML coming on for the engine running lean code, and now she's getting beeped at every time she turns the ignition on, saying the oil needs changing. So after we've done the service, we will turn that oil light off for her as well. The Mokka is back in the garage for the first time since fixing the EML light for the running lean issue and the P0171 code, which turned out to be the purge valve. Onto the service then. To carry out a service, we're going to need some service parts, so let's see what we have bought. 1 box, 2 box. Open them up, shall we? Ow! Oh, I cut myself. Let's try that again, shall we? The golden goodness. The box is boxed. Genuine air filter. Genuine cabin filter. Genuine oil filter. And seal for the oil filter housing. Finished with genuine spark plugs and sump plug washer. First things first then, let's open the bonnet. And I'm going to get the oil changed. Firstly, I'm going to take the oil filler cap out and release the dipstick. That just aids the oil flow when we get underneath the car in a second and drop the sump plug to allow the oil to flow out of the engine just a touch easier. To get underneath the car then, we're going to have to jack it up. I always use a bit of wood there when I jack up, just to protect the seal a bit, and you can just see a bit of the seal in there where I've jacked up on. It's quite clear where you need to jack up because there's a side skirt here and there's a big gap in order to fit the jack. I've only jacked up on the one side because it's quite a big car. I don't want to call it an SUV because I don't really think it's worthy of that. It's not a Range Rover, is it? And then I've just put a axle stand under the subframe there, just in case the jack fails, so I don't get squashed. Here's the view underneath the car then. Going in this way, you've got the sump plug there. So that is the bottom of the engine, and undoing that is going to drop all of the oil. It's nice to see that Vauxhall are still using the sump plugs with the TX45 hole, that star-shaped hole in the plug there to undo. Nice and familiar. So here is my ratchet and my TX45 socket that I'm going to undo the plug with. I've got a bowl at the ready to catch the oil and a bit of rag for when oil gets spilt, which inevitably it is going to when you're rolling around on the floor like this. Let's crack open that sump plug. You want to undo this by hand so you can feel when it gets to the end of the thread. So I often put a finger in there to just push it in. As I turn, eventually you'll hear the click and you'll feel that it's no longer screwed in, and you can see the oil starting to drip down. So then when you're in that point, in one swift movement, pull the plug away and the oil will arrive like that. Like I've done this before. I'm going through this in a bit of detail just in case you're watching this because you want to have a go yourself. Mokkas obviously are a very common car on the road, so there's every chance that one of you out there is needing to do a service on it and fancies giving it a go, but maybe just needs a bit of guidance, and hopefully I can offer you that guidance. Whilst the oil is draining, we are going to locate the oil filter housing, which I have located down in here. Is that meant to be that loose? This is just the plug for the AT sensor, which is a bit loose. Whether that has become loose from when I changed the cam cover in the last video on the Mokka, or has always been loose, I'm not sure, but it needs to slide into that clip, and it looks like it slides in from underneath because there's a little tab at the bottom there that's going to prevent me sliding it downwards, which would be much easier if I could slide it downwards. There we go. Just to be clear, that wasn't part of a service, that was just something I spotted while servicing, and you should always be on the lookout for that sort of thing. Not that it mattered too much, that was flapping around, probably wouldn't have done anything in the long term, but makes it nice and tidy, clipping it back in. So oil filter housing, we will need a socket to see what oil filter tools I've got. Where do I keep my oil filter tools? Ta-da! 27. No, it's too big, so it's none of those. Smaller than 27. 21. No. 23. No. 24. We have a hit on 24 mil. Let's use this one to be easier. So you will need a 24 mil socket. I'm just going to go with a small extension, but I'm going to go with the bigger one. So then that puts the bit where I need to put the ratchet all the way up here, which gives me more room to turn it. So we're just going to undo that. A bit like the sump plug, you'll get to a point and you might start to see some oil coming out, seeping out, not pouring out. So you don't have to worry too much on this bit, but it's always nice just to get a rag underneath just to catch any drips, because you don't really want those on the gearbox below. It will make it look like you've got an oil leak and then you won't really know if you do or not. So I pulled the housing out, the filter stayed in. Sometimes the filter will come out with the housing because it's supposed to clip into there. So then you can just pull the filter out. Again, I'd use a bit of rag, can get a bit messy. So if you've seen me do the service on the Astra, you'll know that is a whole lot messier because the oil filter is pointing downwards and the oil goes straight onto the lower arm. With that then, bring the filter housing top over to the workbench. Get yourself a picky tool. This is literally my favourite tool. It's so useful for so many different things. Take the old O-ring off the housing, put the new one on. Now before we go back on with that, we're going to want to just run some oil or grease around there, just so when we tighten it in, it's got a bit of lubricant, so next year it just comes out that bit easier. If it goes in dry like this, the chances are it's just going to stick to it, and some filter housings, as you spin the cap round to undo it, it just turns the whole housing, and that is not what you want. I've got a bottle of oil already open here, so just pour touch into the cap, put my finger in it and just run that around the outside, and then simply get your new filter and put it in the housing. As I say, it's got these clips on the end and those go into the hole in the housing, and you should hear it click in like that. And then we're ready just to put our new oil filter back in. Don't want to tighten that rag into the oil filter housing, so we'll remove that. There will be a torque spec to tighten this up to. Torque means how tight something is when we are talking in terms of the tightness of a bolt anyway. When you're talking about horsepower and torque, you're talking about turning power. I am not torquing this up properly. I've done these many times, so I am relying on my experience here. That's a laugh. So I'm not putting too much pressure on it, and I get to a point like that where it is tight, and then I'm just going to do a tad more, and that is all I'm doing. That is tight enough. Don't think we had much spillage of oil there, but I've just got some brake cleaner, so I'm just going to give that a spray, get my rag, and just wipe around the bottom of the oil filter housing cap. And that is how you change an oil filter on a 1.4 turbo Mokka with the engine code B14NET. Back underneath the car then, and let's tighten up the sump plug so we can then pour the oil in. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Before we do that, we need to change the O-ring in the sump plug. So similar to the oil filter housing, get your pick, my favourite tool, underneath this O-ring, pull it out. That is flat, that looks like it probably wasn't changed last year. Get your new one and just put it in like that. I've never been so worried about putting oil around that one as I was with the oil filter housing, because there's going to be oil on the hole where this goes back into anyway. You can see by now that the oil is reduced to just a few drips coming out, so let's get the plug back in. So it does actually say on the bottom of the sump here 14 Newton meters. So if you've got a torque wrench, do this up to 14 Newton meters. I don't trust my torque wrench to do that low, so I should probably get a new torque wrench. So again, I'm just using my experience here, same as when I do the Astra. That's good enough for me. Again, bit of a squirt of the brake cleaner, clean it up, and that is the engine closed off. Move your oil out of the way, carefully not to spill it. Oil over the drive on the floor is not what you want, really. Wash under here. I know I did say I'm relying on the MOT. Well, this is generally squeaky clean, but it's always nice just to take the opportunity to have a look around. It does all look in decent shape. The thing I don't like the look of is this bit of the exhaust and those rusty bolts. And if you were to have to take that off, you'd have zero chance. And that is the only thing we're going to need to do underneath the car today. So we can drop the car back off the jack. That's the oil out. Now we need to put some oil in. My friend, the internet, is telling me that these engines take 4 litres. Feels about right. The Astra takes, I can never remember if it's 4.5 or 5, but that's a 2 litre. This is a 1.4. Yes, it's got a turbo, so there's a bit more oil going around. So 4 litres feels at least like a good starting point, but that might be all we need. Never like spilling oil, so I'm going to use the funnel as a precaution. Just need to lift my funnel up a bit because where it was resting, it was right on top of a bolt which was effectively blocking it. So whilst it keeps it nice and steady, doesn't mean it's blocked. That's about 4 litres in the engine now, so we can put the oil filler cap back on. We can put the dipstick in. We can check the level from the dipstick now. Give it a wipe first. But until you start the engine, there's no oil in that filter housing. So it looks like it's slightly overfilled. But when the oil goes around the oil filter housing, that level will drop a bit. So I think actually it's just above the max, so I reckon we're going to be spot on. Here's what we have left to do then. We've got the pollen filter still, the air filter and the spark plugs. So what should we do next? Let's do the air filter because that's nice and easy. Where does the air filter go? As you look at the engine, you've got the air filter box here. What does the air filter do then? So the air filter does what it says on the tin really, it filters the air. As you're driving along, the air will go through there, down the pipe, into the air filter housing. The air filter will sit across there. If there are any leaves or any dust or anything like that, the air filter is going to stop those getting through to the other side, which is this side, because the air then goes down there into the turbo where there is a propeller spinning around by virtue of exhaust gases coming out of the engine. There's 2 propellers in the turbo, one on the exhaust side that spins around, and that spinning drives the intake side, and the intake side spinning is sucking air into the engine. That is why we have turbos on cars, and that is why they make more power, because they suck that air in. The more air and fuel you get into an engine, the more power you get. So after that, the air goes through the turbo, it will go round there to an intercooler somewhere, comes back through here, through the throttle body, into the intake manifold, not through that pipe because that is the pipe that we blocked off in the last video. See that if you're interested, but you don't need to know about that for the service. The air goes into the engine, combined with fuel, and a spark from the spark plug ignites the fuel and the air mixture. That explosion pushes the piston down, that turns the engine over. The engine drive then goes through to the flywheel, through the clutch, to the gearbox drives the wheels, and that is what drives your car. How did we get there? Oh yeah, we're talking about the air filter. I digress. The air filter housing looks quite straightforward. We've got 2 Phillips head screws, one there, and then on this side it's just some clips. So if we take these Phillips head screws out, we should just be able to lift it up that way and pull it out of those clips and lift it away. Just as I thought, and then pull the air filter out. That actually looks quite new. Didn't really need replacing, but we wouldn't have known that unless we checked. And if you're checking, you might as well whack a new one in there like that. Air filter done. Should we just start the engine so we can get the oil flowing round and we can properly test if we've got the right quantity of oil in there? The answer you're looking for is of course yes. There's a red oil light that comes on that is showing that there's not enough oil pressure, but that should go out after a few seconds as the new oil then gets around the engine and builds up the pressure again. Now we can do a last check on that level. And actually it's just not on that last notch there, so it's fine, but I'm just gonna top it up You can see it's nearly at the top there. There'll be some oil to drip down to the bottom of the sump. So once that happens, it probably will be at the top. And I think I'm happy with the amount of oil we've got in there now. That leaves us with the cabin filter and the spark plugs. The cabin filter is done from inside the car, so the spark plugs are the last thing that we need to do under the bonnet. And they are located under here and underneath a coil pack, not too difficult to get to. This cover is just clipped on, it needs a bit of persuasion. You can see the clips there, there, there and there. There is always the potential for snappage there. This is the coil pack. We got T30 there and T30 there. Again, like with the T45 sump plug, it's nice to see Vauxhall are still using the same bolts. Once we've unscrewed those, that just pulls out. Dead simple. Always good to check when you pull the coil pack out down into the spark plug holes there that there's no oil or anything. If there was oil, it might be the sign that there's a leaky cam cover, the cam cover being the black top here, which we actually replaced in the last video anyway, and they're all nice and dry. So then we need to get a spark plug socket from my toolkit. Excuse these wrap-off cuts from the E90, excuse the mess. Don't excuse my cool car collection, it does need a bit of a clean. The pink ST1000 is a personal favourite of mine. I did used to have an ST1000, it was very cool. Here is my spark plug socket, which on this extension goes in there. Get your ratchet and out they come. If you've got a magnetic spark plug socket, that's great, it will pull the spark plugs out, but if you don't, you just get a magnet and you fish them out like this. Here are the old ones, and here's the new one. Just compare them to make sure they are the same, which, yeah, they look good. You can have a quick check on the spark plug itself. The whiter the tip is there means it's running on the lean side. If it's all caked up with blackness, that means it's running a bit rich, which means too much fuel. These look fine, no particular concerns there. Obviously we did have the engine running lean code in the last video, but that wasn't present for that long, so today might be why they're a bit white, but anyway, I'm sure it's fine. Let's get in with the new ones. I should also say that spark plugs normally come with these little cardboard protecting collars that sit on there, because at the end of a spark plug you've got this gap between the electrode. That gap needs to be the right gap. You can measure these with a feeler gauge, but when spark plugs come with that collar, I've always relied on them just being right. On to the tightening them up then. So they are wound all the way down, and there's now a question of how tight do I make them. You should use a torque wrench, but I'm just using my experience. You do not want to over tighten these. So I just go with an amount of pressure that I'm happy with until they don't move anymore, because the torque setting will be quite low. It's probably not too dissimilar to the 14 of the sump plug, it might even be less than that. So that is fine. And then it's back on with the coil pack, the 2 screws, and put the cover back on. Possibly one of the simplest spark plug replacements I've done. That's done under the bonnet then. Like we did when we were underneath the car, it doesn't hurt just to have a quick scan round that you don't spot anything, like we did with that loose O2 sensor plug earlier. But it all looks good to me. You should always check the coolant level, so that is just above the line there, so that's good. Brake fluid reservoir you can check. Open the cap, you can see there's fluid at the top there, that's all good. Windscreen washer you should top up on the service. I'll just wait for Hannah to complain at me that she's run out of washer on that one. What else can you do? Sometimes the battery terminals get sprayed. You can see there's some white grease on there, just to stop any corrosion. I've never tended to do that with my own cars. I think I've got some battery terminal spray. Don't know what I do actually. We used to have some yellow stuff when I was at the garage. So yeah, I'm going to shut the bonnet now. Because the next part of the service is inside the car and behind the glove box. First step, empty all the junk. Second step, there is a hinge or strut on the side here. You just push that way and then that is loose. And then on this side, just pull it towards you. And that comes down. And then the next step is take this out. So just 2 clips either side. You don't need any tools for this, which is something that has changed with Vauxhalls. It always used to be a weird 5.5mm. And then the pollen filter comes out of that hole in there. Get your new one out. Apologies for the one-handedness. You need to put this down. That's better. Should have done that from the start. And then the old one came out that way. It says airflow with an arrow pointing down. You can see this was a non-genuine one. We're going back in with genuine, so we're upgrading. Push that in, literally just clip this back in. Pull the glove box up again, if you didn't break it. Oh, I did break it. Oh look, it snapped there. That's a pain, isn't it? Okay, let's try not to break the other side. Let's push it back in. So this needs to go on there, on the bottom one. Yeah, to do that when the box is a bit open. It's a bit loose now because I break it, but it sort of works. I may have to order a new glove box. That is very irritating. Try and do a service, get things nice again, and you break the glove box. Oh, this is all rubbish. Why is there an empty Tic Tac box in here? Come on, Hannah. Lesson to learn from me then. Take care when you're pulling that glove box out. Undoing the strut on the left side was quite straightforward, but then pulling it down on the right side, just be a bit more careful. The last thing to do then is turn off the oil service light. Key, ignition on. There's your oil service light. Press the set button to clear it. Yeah, it's gone. Use the menu to scroll through the road picture, the car picture and the eco. Land on the car, then use the up and down till you get to oil life remaining, and then hit the set and then up and then set again, and then it says 100% oil life, which is of course fact. So if we turn the ignition off and turn it on again, we should no longer get told that the oil service is due. And with any service, as with any work you do on a car, you should always finish up with a road test just to make sure there's nothing obvious, no knocking, no oil being dumped on the floor, anything silly like that before you give it back to the customer. Keep jumping the gun, don't I? Before we get to the road test, let's tidy up the oil. Like we did in the last video of the antifreeze, we're going to put the old oil from the bowl into an empty oil bottle there, and we also need to write up the service book. Okay, service book then. Annoyingly, when we bought the car last year, nothing was entered in here, so I'm going to leave a gap there just in case the paperwork ever turns up for it. So service, main, oh this is a gold pen, okay. That's a black pen, snap-on pen, perfect for the job. Right, what oil did we use? 530, Shell, none of those. What did we do? We didn't do the battery, we did do the pollen filter, we did do the air cleaner, we didn't do the rib belt, we didn't do the toothed belt, although it's a timing chain anyway, so that's irrelevant. We didn't do the fuel filter. The later Vauxhalls tended not to have a replaceable, serviceable fuel filter. It was just part of what was in the tank, so I'm guessing that was the same on the Mokka. We didn't do transmission fluid, we didn't do brake fluids, we didn't do tyre repair kit, we didn't do brake pads, we did do spark plugs, we didn't do coolant. Authorised repairer. That's me, if I can write my own name. I know I'm not a proper garage, but I've always filled in service books myself. I am a qualified mechanic. It's better to have that information than not. If someone's got an issue with the fact I've done it, well, they don't buy my car. And for this one, we've got a video proving that I've done it. It is what it is. I won't film me writing the rest because I'm going to put my address in now, which I don't really want to publicise on YouTube. So let's pick up on the road test then. So this concludes our road test. Doesn't hurt to have a quick open of the bonnet again. One last check of the oil level, which is still fine. That is a pretty straightforward service. Hopefully I've made it look easy, and maybe you've never done it yourself, but fancy a go? Why not? Do it on this engine, copy me, but don't break that glove box. It's really annoying that's broken, because otherwise this was a really successful video. We got the car through an MOT first time, we did a service, and I was able to actually sound like I know what I'm talking about for a change, because I guess all I was back in the day was a service monkey. So let's hand it back to Hannah now and tell her the bad news about the glove box. This is what's happened. It seems fine, but then it falls out on that side.
Oh, what?
Are you cross with me?
I need a new mechanic.
Okay. Otherwise your car is serviced.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy.
I will.
Do stay tuned, because I intend to fix that glove box. Look on eBay, they're about 30 quid, but I just need to make sure I get one in the right colour and one that isn't also broken. I'll probably do a short on that. A bit more of a routine video this time round after the diagnostic problems that we had in the last one. Anyway, thank you for getting to this point in the video, and I will see you next time.